Good morning, everyone. We'll call the October 4th, 2011 meeting of the Jackson City Council to order. Ask Councilman Scott Conger if he would to lead us in our invocation and pledge, and if you would please rise.
Bow your heads, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today, first off giving thanks for allowing us to wake up and be here today and allowing us the rights to gather and have these meetings. We ask that you give us the competency of thy divine wisdom, that we may make the decisions that will positively affect and influence the city of Jackson. In your holy name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anita, I think you can show all council members present this morning, and council item 4 is approval of minutes of September 6th, 2011. City council meeting. Council has a copy of those minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to them? If not, we'll let those minutes stand as received. Let me indicate now to the general public, if there's anyone here who would like to be heard on any item under new business, if you... Okay, any item under new business, if you would make that known, then we'll be happy to have you come up and make those comments. Councilman Conger has a couple of comments, if you would.
First off, I would like to thank all my fellow council members and City of Jackson employees for your condolences and cards and calls and visits through the past couple of weeks with the passing of my grandfather. You don't know how much that means for a family to have that outpour of support and love. I just want to say I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I also want to take this opportunity to recognize my Leadership Jackson class. If y'all just need to stand up and raise your hand, Leadership Jackson class of 2011.
Don't stand up. Good to have you here. Okay, we have a couple of proclamations. First one is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and I think we have with us this morning Lisa Kincaid, who's account representative of the University of Tennessee Corporate Connections, and also Linda Randolph. And y'all come on up, who is field supervisor of the Tennessee Department of Human Services, Division of Rehabilitation Services, and also Jimmy Bell, interim director of LWIA 11 with the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. I want you all to know we have one council person also involved in that. And let me ask Councilman Buchanan if he would to come down and join this group. Okay, this is a proclamation. Whereas, since 1945, the month of October has been designated by the United States Congress as a time to acknowledge the contributions made by employees with disabilities. And whereas the Tennessee Career Center, Jackson Workforce Investment Area 11, the Division of Rehabilitation Services, and the DRS Corporate Connections are working together to improve the quality of life for persons with disabilities in Jackson and to enhance the public knowledge about available resources to enable citizens with disabilities to reach their full potential in the workforce. And whereas these groups, in conjunction with area businesses and other Jackson community organizations, are working together to recognize the value of employees with disabilities and their employers through special activities. And whereas the 2011 theme, Profit by Investing in Workers with Disabilities, honors the contribution of workers with disabilities and serves to inform the public that they represent a highly skilled talent pool that can help employees compete in today's global economy. And whereas America's employers receive a return on their investment by hiring individuals who possess the skill sets, knowledge, education, and desire to get the job done, including individuals with disabilities, thereby improving employment opportunities that lead to good jobs and a secure economic future for people with disabilities and the nation as a whole. Now, therefore, we, Jerry Guest, Mayor of the City of Jackson, Tennessee, and Jimmy Harris, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, October the 4th, 2011, is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and urge all citizens to recognize and participate in this observance. And it's an honor for me to present this proclamation to you on behalf of the Jackson City Council and the people of Jackson. Congratulations.
I just want to say a special thank you to Mayor Guest and to the City Council for always honoring National Disability Employment Awareness Month in Jackson and Madison County. And I want to be sure and invite you all to a breakfast that will take place on October 28th. It's a Friday at 7:30 at the Jackson Area Chamber of Commerce. We will be having a special speaker via Skype from Vanderbilt University, and that's Sarah Ezel with Project Opportunity. We'll also have several employers there to talk about their experiences in employing people with disabilities and how they profited by that. So I hope that you'll come and join us that day. And thank you again so much.
Thank you all. Second proclamation is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I know Margaret Cole is here. I hope Margaret is here, Director of RAP. Also Captain Mike Hope, I think, is probably here. And also Investigator Debbie Stanford is here. They work in our domestic violence unit and been very active, and appreciate their participation. Margaret, I always appreciate you for what you do. And Lieutenant Tyrese Miller.
Yes, and Manny Ferguson from RAP,
Absolutely.
and Tammy is from RAP.
Okay.
Two investigators.
Y'all come on up. Don't have them back there behind the podium.
I know, I didn't know they were back.
Okay, very good. A proclamation, whereas domestic violence is more than 3 times as likely to occur when couples are experiencing high levels of financial strain as when they're experiencing low levels of financial strain. And whereas the cost of intimate partner domestic violence annually exceeds $5.8 billion, including $4.1 billion in direct care expenses. And whereas the problem of domestic violence affects all citizens of Jackson and Madison County, Tennessee, crossing all racial, social, religious, ethnic, geographic, and economic groups. And whereas the key to ending violence is a community and having community efforts that insist that violence is not tolerated in Jackson and Madison County. And whereas Women's Resource and Rape Assistance Program and the Jackson-Madison County Task Force Against Domestic Violence in Jackson and Madison County continue to research efforts that are evidence-based to help diminish domestic violence in our city and county. Now, therefore, we, Jerry Guest, Mayor of the City of Jackson, Tennessee, and Jimmy Harris, Mayor of Madison County, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim October 2011 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and urge all citizens to become aware of this destructive force in our society and become part of the efforts to stop violence in families. Mark, I'll thank you for always what you do. Thank you very much. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor and council members, and just want to say a couple of things. Domestic violence is something we can't solve alone. RAP can't solve it alone, and that's why we have other members here. JPD works very diligently with RAP. Since this DV unit has been enacted, I think our numbers have increased, and we're seeing a lot more of Debbie and her staff than we've ever seen before. So it's a great effort, and it takes the police, it takes RAP, it takes the judges, the judicial system, it takes counseling efforts, it takes a little bit of everything to make a difference in the lives of these women and children. I think with the DV unit, recidivism may have gone down, but still they're getting new calls. The calls are not just stopping because there are more and more people that are living in or growing into domestic violence. We want to invite you this month, because it is October. We have some events going on and want you to know about those. This Friday we do our Candies for Cops, and so law enforcement in our 14 county area will be given bags of candy with a special thank you note delivered to them. And then on the 13th, right on the Madison County Courthouse lawn at 6 o'clock, we'll have our candlelight vigil, where we actually hear survivors speaking from their heart and actually have a candle lighting ceremony for them, for those that have died and those that are continuing on. And then on the 20th of October, we have a conference, a half-day conference, where we're talking about domestic violence and talking about solutions and talking about how we as citizens can help those people that are living in domestic violence instead of turning our back away from them. And so I want to thank the city for always recognizing this, and for my fellow members. You all have anything you want to say? Thank y'all for working with us, and let's continue the effort to make a difference in the lives of the women and children that are abused in West Tennessee. Thank you.
Come on up here, guys.
You want to take
Photo
another picture?
op.
Do a photo op. Okay.
So act like you love each other.
Okay, under first reading, Stan, if you'd come up, we have item 7. It's consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located on the south side of Ridgecrest Road, just east of Campbell Street, from AO1 Agriculture Open Land District to O Office District, and RG2 PRD General Residential Plan Residential Development District, containing 19.64 acres, submitted by Chris Tursky on behalf of Northwind LLC.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
You have the materials pertinent to this rezoning request in your packet. This was presented to the Planning Commission at their last meeting, and they have recommended this rezoning to you.
Stan,
Yes, sir.
the road that they're putting in this property now, is it going to come back into Ridgecrest extended, or is it just go straight in off of Campbell, or?
This is on the south side of Ridgecrest, so it doesn't have anything to do with the road that's being cut in on the north side. That's the road that they're just building as an infrastructure to serve that property, but there's no development plans on the north. It would be on, basically on the map, it'd be on this side of Ridgecrest. This is directly across on the south side of Ridgecrest.
I got you. I'm sorry. My
That's okay.
apologies.
Any other questions of Stan? This is first reading on this particular ordinance, so we'll conduct the public hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in support of or in opposition to the passage of this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, and is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Motion, for the second? Second. Second. Discussion? Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Item 8 is second readings, consideration of ordinance to close and abandon 2 sections of Fair Street within City Walk redevelopment project. Section 1 running west 340 feet from Union Avenue to a point, and Section 2 running between North Highland Avenue and White Street. Council has approved this on first reading. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Motion, second. Discussion. Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Item 2 is consideration of the ordinance to close and abandon 100-foot section of Wells Street within the City Walk redevelopment project running north from Fair Street. I think council has approved this on first reading. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second. Discussion from council. Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Item 9, under new business, we have Police Chief Gil Kendrick here to, in recognition of some awards, which have been given to the Jackson Police Department. Gil, if you want to come up and just have a seat up here, buddy, or you want to do it there?
Here be fine.
That'd be fine, be fine.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council, members of the audience here today. The International Association of Chiefs of Police is recognized as a worldwide leader in the standards of acceptable law enforcement programs. One particular program is the National Law Enforcement Challenge. The National Law Enforcement Challenge provides law enforcement agencies with an opportunity to make a significant difference in the communities they serve. The challenge is a friendly competition between similar sizes and types of law enforcement agencies that recognizes and rewards the best overall traffic safety programs in the United States. The program is designed to strengthen and support the traffic enforcement nationwide and targets 3 major traffic safety priorities: occupant protection, impaired driving, and speeding. Participating agencies are asked to provide documentation on their agency's efforts and effectiveness in areas of officer training, public information, and enforcement to reduce crashes and injuries. The Governor's Highway Safety Office for many years has sponsored a program commonly referred to as the Tennessee Law Enforcement Challenge, which is modeled after the program by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. This program is also an incentive award program, also designed to award law enforcement agencies for outstanding achievements regarding highway safety enforcement and education programs throughout our state and our communities. The charge was given to the Traffic Division of the Jackson Police Department to spearhead enumerating the collective traffic initiatives of the patrol and traffic divisions of the Jackson Police Department for participation in the 2010-2011 Tennessee Law Enforcement Challenge. By entering the state challenge, an agency also becomes a participant in the IACP National Law Enforcement Challenge. Once documentation was compiled and submitted, the Jackson Police Department was placed in a category of agencies having 201 to 500 officers and pitted against agencies throughout the state of Tennessee and this nation. It is with great pride that I inform you that your Jackson Police Department received the Rookie of the Year Award in the state of Tennessee for being a first-time applicant. They also received the Technology Award in the state of Tennessee for the use of technology to achieve the goals and objectives of the program. The Jackson Police Department also received first place in the state of Tennessee in the category of agencies between 201 and 500 officers. And last but not least, Tuesday, October the 25th, 2011, the Jackson Police Department will be recognized as a second place winner nationally of agencies having 201 to 500 officers at the annual meeting of the International Association of Chiefs of Police in Chicago, Illinois. I thought it quite befitting, Mayor and Council, that I let you guys know about the accomplishments of Patrol and Traffic Division as far as traffic safety in the community of Jackson, Tennessee. I've asked these gentlemen, they're reflective of the supervision of the Traffic Division and the North and South precincts of our Patrol Division, and collectively what these personnel have done, and officers that also work in the respective units. They have the awards set up outside, so if you guys would like to see them at the end of the council meeting today, feel free to do so and talk to them about the pride of their documentation as far as the Jackson Police Department. But I personally think they're very deserving of a round of applause for their accomplishments.
They are. Thank you. Chief, thank you, and thanks to all of our officers, especially our traffic division, who do a great job trying to save lives and prevent damage to vehicles and property throughout our city. Thank you all for the great job. Congratulations to you on that award. It's a great honor. Item 2 is consideration of a lease agreement between the City of Jackson and Jackson Transit Authority regarding the building located at 429 East Main. With Lenanda here, head of our dispatch, if she's here, if you have any questions. Al can, yeah, okay, yeah, Chief Campbell, can y'all have any questions about this lease? It is with the Jackson Transit Authority for space for our central dispatch. Okay, if there are no questions, let's, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second. Discussion of council. Council, please vote. Thank you.
And the vote is unanimous.
Item 3 is consideration of a funding request for $175,000 for Youth Challenge. I think we have a couple of members of the juvenile court here, Judge Little, and y'all come on up, guys, just have a seat. I'd like to recognize also Bart Swift, who is the clerk of the juvenile court. Good to have him here. Morning. If y'all would just, for the record, please introduce yourselves for the council.
Amy Jones, Director of Juvenile Court Services.
Christy Little, General Sessions and Juvenile Court Judge.
Nick Pappas, Director of Youth Town.
Okay.
Okay. Tony Blair spoke last night, and although he's not from around here, I was sitting there actually praying about today, and he said there were two things. We needed a purpose to respond, and I was sitting there thinking of all the crime that we've seen lately, all the deaths. I've seen the last teenager in a casket that I care to ever see in my lifetime. And he said that you have to have a reason. Well, the reason I get up in the morning, and Steve and I talked about this on the way home, was because I feel in my heart that I have a calling to do what I can to help children as long as I'm the juvenile court judge. And our youth need a purpose, but they can't find that purpose without our help. Second, he said education is the most important thing. And not just the elite, not just the children who have the most money, and not just any age. Mark Twain said, every time you close a school, build a jail. And I believe that with all my heart. And out at Youth Town, at Youth Challenge, while they're there for 8 weeks, we have an on-campus school with a principal, Wick Hearn and Jan Kaufman, who are retired members, very respected members of our school system. We try to educate, but when you find a 16-year-old male who can't read at a second grade level, you've got a problem. And that falls under a community problem. When you have a 15-year-old who you know is going to go home and he has a drug problem, but his mom and dad are still going to be smoking marijuana when he gets in the house, you either have two issues you can resolve. Empower him to not smoke or get him out of that situation. We also, as everyone knows, have issues with young men who see their parents, especially their fathers, abusing their mothers, as RAP is so very helpful with us. And it is difficult sometimes to explain to a young man that that's not what normal people, or that's not how we should do. And as a community, we have a duty to help those children. Children need direction, and it's parental involvement, but it's a community involvement. It's the best investment we can make. We need to work to make certain that they understand there is a higher power, and we do that at Youth Town. And I think that's what makes us so very successful. We allow our children to remain there for a minimum of 8 weeks. It's residential, so they stay with us. If they don't get the points they need, they continue on until they 8 more weeks. After that, it's 6 months of aftercare, and as Attorney Brooks knows, the children aren't very excited about being there, but sometimes afterwards they don't want to go home. And it is a wonderful deterrent, but we call it a preventative measure because our success rate cannot be touched in the state of Tennessee for the amount of children who do not come back into the court system and who do not get in any other trouble. It's the best resource, in my opinion, that the city has, with the help of the Jackson Police Department, RAP, and all the other resources that we have worked with and continue to work with and will continue to work with. We are asking for $175,000. I know at first that sounds shocking, but you can't put a price tag on a life, obviously. we would not have thrown this figure out. We would not have asked you for this amount of money if every penny wasn't going to be spent for the children in the city of Jackson. That money will be spent for the children, for the parents that you represent. We did not anticipate losing as much money as we lost this year, and as I know, Councilman, what we've talked about, we're going to have to look for alternative ways to come up with funding, but with Nick and Pappas and Vicky and Lake, who helped us with the grant, and with Ms. Jones, this is bare bones, and if we don't get the $175,000, we cannot provide the quality that we need, and we basically would not be able to function. We would have to close our doors. That also is approximately 15 employees that live in the city of Jackson that would lose their jobs. So it's not just the children, but it's the employees that the children desperately look up to for leadership. Sadly, sometimes they're the only parental, especially male parental positive role model that they ever see. The $175,000 would allow us to continue to provide what we need to provide for the children of this city. So we would respectfully request the full amount of funding for this year. We would ask that you allow us to do that. Let us look at it each year to see where we are, to see if we are continuing to provide what you feel is appropriate. We won't give you reports. We will let you know how the young men are doing in this program, and we will continue to run this as efficiently as we possibly can. In the words of a young man who, they have to write me letters at the end, and they're always very positive because I know they want to go home. So I always say I'm blind, but I realize that there are some self-serving comments. But for the most part, when we get ready to leave, the children don't want to go home because they've been allowed to have somebody that loves them, somebody that feeds them, and somebody that knows where they are 24/7, which has been a major problem for us. And the new ordinance for curfew has been very helpful, and I thank the police department for allowing us to do that. But DeWante told me in his letter, he said, Judge Little, thanks for not giving up on kids like me. And as long as I'm breathing, I will not give up on kids like Deontay or any other child who needs a little bit of assistance and a little bit of help. And if we as a community don't come together now and do that, I'm afraid that we're going to lose a generation of young men. And I would just simply ask that you provide us with the $175,000 for the continuation of Youth Challenge of West Tennessee.
Okay, thank you, Judge Love. Any questions from council?
I have a couple, Mayor, if I
Okay,
may.
sure, go ahead, Council.
And a statement. First, I'd like to thank you for being here, Judge.
Thank you.
As many know, I've practiced in your court
Weekly.
since the beginning of Youth Challenge and have seen firsthand the effect that it's had on not only the children here in the city of Jackson, but also Madison County. And I'm just looking at some of the information that you provided. Almost half of all the kids that have been served in Youth Challenge are from the city of Jackson. That's true?
Absolutely, and we did run those to be certain, and even looked at addresses, so yes.
Right, okay.
Inner city seems to be the biggest issue at this point.
Sure, and that's where we have problems that
Yes,
we're working through.
sadly.
And initially it was funded through federal block grants, isn't that correct, that come to the
Exactly.
states?
This is
And-
our 12th year, and it was all federally funded initially, yes.
Okay. And it says your success rate is about 85 to 87%, so
Yes.
conversely, the recidivism rate is about 15 to 13%?
Yes, except the last time we ran the figures, it was 92.8%, which is
Okay.
manna from heaven. I
Right.
think we had 7 of the 520. And what that means, Councilman Brooks, is that after their 6 months, not after their 8 weeks, because that'd be easy. But after the 6 months of the group that has graduated successfully, those young men have not gone back before a judge, come into state custody, or been transferred to adult court. So I dare say, I don't think, and we've checked it, but I don't think there's any other program in the state that has that high of a rate. And initially, they thought that, the federal government felt that we were maybe not being quite so
Fudging the
honest
numbers,
about
yeah.
that, and they came and audited us and said,
Right.
Judge, you're right this time. So, as picky as they are, they agreed. So I think it has to do with the fact that during that 6 months, as you know, we can run them back through the program.
Right.
So they might need a little pick-me-up for a week or two, and they know that. And so we tend to find that has a deterrent effect. Also, just the fact that the program has all the right elements it needs. So it is what it is, and we have double checked it. But yes, that are the numbers. Those are the numbers that we have to turn in for funding. And we'll continue to provide you with that information as
Right,
well.
and that's what's important from our side, to keep them from coming back. That's the most
Absolutely. The
important.
revolving door must stop.
Right. They also listed some conditions that needed to be met. I'm sure you all follow those.
Absolutely.
Conditions and take care of those.
We do have to meet quarterly, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
We have a quarterly group, Captain Kendrick, myself, we have one member, Councilman Cisco. We have a group that meets quarterly, and we basically go through, and Ms. Jones, and we make certain we are meeting all those goals. And if we need to tweak one thing, one group may be more alcohol and drug addicted issues, where one group may be heavily in a gang or gang involvement, and we have rival games that we have to work with. And we basically take each group and try to model that 8 weeks for the needs of those children. Right now, we have a very young group. November 12th is, let me make sure I'm right, November the 10th, excuse me, at 4 o'clock is graduation, and I encourage you to come. Mayor
neat.
Gist always comes, and it is amazing, the different groups, the young, the old, and the little bitty young boys and the large young men in the awards that we give. But we try to tweak each 8-week group, and it is amazing the different issues that they have. A lot of times we don't allow them to go home. We put them in foster care or alternate relative placement, because our staff at Youthtown works so closely, and they see the families come in for these group meetings and realize that that's not going to be a positive environment.
So
We
there-
want them to succeed.
So there is a level of flexibility that you're saying from class to class, that you're able to tailor
Right.
it and tweak it to.
Absolutely.
And I guess to some detractors, would you say Youth Challenge is a boot camp or not?
The federal government doesn't fund boot camps.
Right.
They've been funding something that we call a program that challenges mind, body, and spirit. I would say to you as city councilman that that's a way of saying a boot camp with a twist, and that we don't just work on the physical, but we also work on the spiritual and the mental and the emotional. But I guess if you just held my feet to the fire on that, I would say that, yes, it probably is one with the ability to be flexible so that our funding is not cut, because we are still going to receive right at $69,000 this year, one more year of funding, probably that or less, that will be used for the smaller counties. As you know, sometimes young men and women want to come in and shoplift at our mall because there's not a whole lot to offer in Halls or Chester County or,
Right.
but other counties. But so we will still be held to those standards, and we're going to continue to. We would never, obviously, treat a child or mistreat a child, but we have to have that structure in order to keep those young men at 8 weeks getting up at 5:30, going to bed lights out at 8, and that structure that they need. It has to be regimented, and
Sure.
it is very regimented.
Right, and many don't have that at home.
No.
I would suggest.
And they
Well,
like it.
Yeah, actually, that's what I've heard as well. Well, surely we commend your work, Mr. Pappas, Amy, and I would urge my colleagues to support this request. Thank you so much for being here.
Any other questions or comments? from
I have
council?
some comments.
Sure.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said. I know it's a successful program, and if I ever need any money, I would like for you to be the one to make the speech, because you've touched all the heartstrings. But you know, Judge Little, you're right. I mean, one child is worth $175,000 if it turns that child's life around. But we're looking at a budget here that we have. And this is my 4th meeting on the council, and I do not presume to have the wisdom or experience of the other city council members, but I know at every single meeting we've had people come before us and ask for funds that are not specified in our budget. I don't blame those people for coming. They've all had worthy projects. But there comes a time when we really do have to think about our fiscal accountability. And these federal grants will be cut out. As you said, maybe the whole 69,000 won't be cut out next year, but could be, and could be part of it. But the bottom line is the federal government's in trouble, and therefore federal grants are being cut out. And I don't want the city of Jackson to have the financial woes that our federal government has. So it's not about not being compassionate. I think we all want shelters for the homeless. We all want to do our part to turn a young person's life around, to give them an alternative. The problem is the $175,000. I'm willing to give you quite a bit of assistance. I'm willing to give you what we gave you last year, the $75,000. I'm willing to do a little more than that because this has caught you off guard, obviously. I have a problem with $175,000. I'd like our council to maybe consider $100,000. You say, well, is that a lot of difference? Yes, it is, because last month we were asked for about $75,000 from people who wanted the homeless shelter, and that was worthy. And next month it will probably be someone else. So that would be, I'm not going to make the motion because I want to hear from the other city council members, but that's where I'm leaning. Now, that other $75,000 that you need, I do think the public needs to get involved. And as you said the other night, and I agreed, certainly, it's a little bit more difficult maybe to get people to pledge, a monthly pledge to help these children than it would be to help a homeless person, for example. But it's only $65 a month pledge from 100 people, and you would have that. If this council votes to give you the $175,000 this year, then certainly that's what I would suggest you look at next year, is trying to get those monthly pledges, or more if you can. But I'm concerned about us voting every month to fund projects as wonderful as they are and as needed as they are for the city. I'm concerned about that. We've got to sooner or later either fund part of the requests, or pick and choose, and that's hard, or not fund any of them, and that's foolhardy because so many are good. So that's where I am, but as I said, I'm not making that as a motion because I want to hear from the others.
And I think it's apropos that, you know, and it's hard to compare a homeless person with a child with an abused mother, but we've had a decrease in the juvenile crime rate, and I'd like to, I'm not taking credit for it certainly, but I would like to think that that is a direct correlation with the Youth Challenge, because that is really the only program that we have. Now, the city has never funded any money for Youth Challenge. The county has funded $591,000 over the years, and this year agreed to fund $100,000. They have a line item of $75,000 and added the $25,000 additional to allow us to continue. If we don't get the $175,000 today, it's pretty much a general consensus that we would have to close. I don't see at this stage of the game that it would be, it would do any service to our children, because if we don't have the aftercare component, we don't know where to pick and choose. We have to have mandates such as one, and if we cut the number of children, it doesn't help, because you have to have one staff per every 8 children. We'd like to have 1 to 4, but we're now 1 to 8, which, as you know, with 8 young men, they have their hands full. The other problem is that if we don't have all those components in place, we can't meet the federal mandates to keep the money. So basically, as a group, if we don't get the 175, and the reason I was late asking is we didn't know what, if any, we were going to get, and had been promised more, and that's I've learned a lesson in politics that I didn't like, and I guess lesson learned. But Nashville and the federal government doesn't care about Jackson, Tennessee when it comes to our children, but I do. And I know that my constituents and your constituents, although sometimes they don't like to spend the money, if you ask them what would they rather spend their funding, I think they'd rather spend it where it would protect our community and save a child's life than they would in in other places, and I'm not saying that the other nonprofits are not needed, but I do think the council needs to look closely at some of those nonprofits and make them as accountable as we have been to the federal government and account for that funding. And I would just say, if you would find it in your heart, and I understand it, I do understand it, and I know it sounds like a lot of money. Last night when they announced they had $20 million at Union, I thought, if I looked to my friend and said, if I just had $175,000, I could go to sleep tonight, because I didn't sleep much last night. The problem is that it would be difficult to sell that and get that in place, since we already are in our funding quarter for October, to raise that money right now. I think the timing is a problem, and the amount is bare bones. That's cutting. That's a whole lot less than what we've run the program in the past. So I just ask that if you would find it in your heart this time to give me the 175, and the other councilmen would find it in their hearts to do so, that we will make the cuts, and once we are only dealing with our city and county children and not accounting for that funding and not under the mandates that we have to, but I'm not giving them any money back. If we gave them that 69 back and weren't under some of the mandates, that would cut out smaller counties at this point. Next year, that probably will be the case, but I guess my point is, if we don't, if we could get it this one time next year, I don't anticipate asking for that amount of money next year, and wouldn't even consider it, because I don't feel like the citizens would have to be responsible for that. But this year, the reasoning was the fact that the city basically has not had it in a line item up to this point in time. So this will be the first time the city has funded Youth Challenge under the budget. So.
I thought we gave $75,000 last year for one
No.
of your, I was
No.
mistaken about
County.
that. So we didn't fund
No,
any.
I've never
Okay.
requested from the city,
Okay.
but the county did, but then they added
Okay.
25 to it.
Okay, I'm sorry
And
about
that wasn't clear. I don't know that,
Yeah, I
that
thought-
was my fault Thursday. I believe I
Yeah,
didn't make
I
that.
knew you said that.
I
Okay.
didn't make that very.
That's okay. So really, Judge Little, what the bottom line is this. Okay. You need $175,000
Yes,
for the program to operate this year. Next year, you're probably gonna need $240,000 if
Right.
federal government cuts out. I'm just 175 and
Unless we cut
69.
the other counties, I mean, right, but we could probably do it for.
You can't cut the other counties out this year.
We can't if we take that money, and I hate to
Okay,
not take the
yeah,
money.
no, that's right, that's
Yeah.
right, I understand
As
that.
my dad said, never turn money away,
That's-
so I'm not gonna turn it away. but-
Well,
Yeah.
I don't like to turn money down either, but I don't like the strings attached when we get these
Right.
grants. But anyway, I'll leave it up to everybody to discuss. I just know that we
Mayor.
can't keep saying yes to everything.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dodd.
I would just like to say, I think it's important that we support this effort. If you look over our city right now, we're losing so many of our young men and our kids. And if you look back over our budget, we have cut so much money out of our youth programs. We are doing a whole lot, but at one time we had a whole lot of parks that was open, that we had somewhere for our kids to go and get involved in. And right now, some of the youth programs, the parents cannot even afford to do that now. The Boys and Girls Club is so high, the YMCA is so high, and then people have so many kids that they can't pay for 3 or 4 kids. So you have kids basically raising themselves in the streets or at home, and this program has been a great program. I think a lot of kids in my district, I hate to say that, is probably involved in this program. I mean, I went out to speak at the program, and I go back, and some of them back on the streets trying to make a difference. But then again, the only role model they have is some of the people that's in your program out there. But I think it's important that we support this effort. I know it's hard, but we don't want to raise taxes. It's hard, but this city we gotta start spending our money, or we need to spend it on some things. And our youth right now is important in our city.
Mayor. this
Okay,
one
any
back.
other comments or
I'd
motion?
like to make a point.
Sure, go ahead, Councilman Cisco.
I saw this program firsthand. I worked through the sheriff's department in juvenile court for 7 years. I saw the successes of it. Now I'm working in another portion of the sheriff's department, the criminal justice complex. I see the difference. Gentlemen and Ms. Foote, I can tell you that if this program is not there,
the citizens will see a difference. You either pay it now, or you're definitely gonna pay it later. And my opinion is, we don't have much choice, especially if we want to help the youth of this community. And I know personally what this program has done. And I make a motion that we approve this.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any additional discussion?
This is for the whole thing, for the
Your motion
$175,000.
is for
Right.
$175,000, right?
Right.
Approve the
Council?
request.
Okay. Council understand what the motion is?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion from council? Council, please vote.
And the motion passes with 8 in favor and 1 abstaining.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
in light of all the discussion with respect to city funding, I would like to offer up a suggestion at this time that we reactivate the funding committee comprised of 3 council members to screen all applicants for social service agencies, nonprofit agencies, all applicants who would like to make a request before the council with respect to funding, that they come through the funding committee, and the funding committee makes a recommendation to the full council. And I offer that as a recommendation to organize a funding committee comprised of 3 council persons.
Okay, is that, for official action to be taken, that needs to be in the order of a motion? Is that your motion?
It does.
That is the motion.
Three members appointed by,
Appointed by our chairman.
okay. Any questions about the motion? Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, it's a second. Any discussion from council?
Is three enough members to be on that committee, or should it be 5?
I think it needs to be more than 3.
My recommendation is 3,
That's what it's always been.
and it can report to the full council with respect to the findings and the recommendations of the social service or non-public organization. That way, we can save time, save energy, and get the information that we need with respect to making a rational decision on funding.
Councilman?
Okay, we have a motion and a second for a 3-member committee appointed by the mayor to interview the nonprofits at their budget request. That's the motion that's on the table, and it's been properly seconded. Any questions from council? Council, please vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Judge Little.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy?
We'll keep you updated.
Sure. Council would allow me just to deviate just for a moment from the agenda. We have, I won't certainly introduce this individual to council and members of the audience, our newly appointed fire chief, Chief Max Stewart. Chief, would you stand up? Thank you for being here. Item 4 is consideration of an application for participation in an after-school care snack component on Tennessee Child and Adult Care Food Program. That is through the Recreation and Parks Department, and I think that's an annual program.
So moved.
Is there a motion? Motion
Second.
made, second. Discussion? Council, please.
My only question, Mayor, was it funded at the same rate? I know we do it every year, but
It's a good question. I
I
don't
just
know
had
if
that
it was
question.
reduced. Karen, do you know, have you gotten any information from Bridget? Okay,
if somebody can just let me know that'd be
Sure.
fine.
sure. Okay, do we have a motion to second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Item 5, under new business, consideration of zero tolerance drug-free workplace policy. Ms. Henning, if you will.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council.
Morning.
People. For 22 years, we have had a drug-free workplace policy. This policy has allowed individuals who have succumb to drugs and/or alcohol a chance at a one-time chance, a rehab assistance program. We've allowed these people to go to employee counseling through our EAP program, where the city funds at first 5 visits, and then subsequent visits are at the employee's insurance, or they have to pay. Throughout this time, we have had perhaps 50 people to go through the program. The first, perhaps 20 to 25, we did not have a good success rate. Their return to work, they were under the knowledge that they had a one-time chance. Once they returned to work, if they were tested again, then they would become ex-city employees. We think the program has good merit, and I think you've heard about the drugs and all that this morning. And what we are looking at now is a zero-tolerance policy for illegal drug usage. These are the recreational drugs, and I guess they call them recreational, but it's the illegal stuff. The people who still have an addiction or succumb at times to prescription drugs or alcohol usage still have a one-time rehab chance. We thought this program is really past time for us to look at a zero-tolerance policy. If an employee, now one of the things that we do for all of our new employees, we have a pre-screening drug test. So we don't hire people who have drug addiction knowingly, okay? If these people are tested, if our employees are tested, they have, and they test positive to illegal drugs, we will allow them the chance to resign from employment, or we will assist them in becoming ex-employees, former employees. This is a policy, and you know, I talked to you on Thursday night. I gave you one of the problems, or one of the people who had a real bad drug addiction and what had happened. Since that time, we've had several others, but some of them have come through the program successfully. But at this time, we just feel like it's in the best interest of the citizens of Jackson and the city employee population that we present to you a zero tolerance for illegal drug usage, possession, sale, distribution, or whatever in the workplace.
Okay. Questions of council?
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
So a distinction is drawn between illegal drugs, prescription drugs, and alcohol.
Yes, sir.
Why is there not a zero tolerance policy for prescription drugs and alcohol?
Well, they are legal. They are legal. You can purchase them legally.
Sure, I understand that distinction, of course.
And we want to be compassionate. We want to be very responsible as we are stewards of the city's money, but we want to be compassionate in a way too. We offer that one-time assistance. It's still a one-time assistance for people who succumb. And sometimes people succumb to prescription drug abuse. It's by their own dereliction, and sometimes they are aided and abetted by people who are in the profession to render such.
So because, and I want to understand you, so because of, we think that some of the prescription drug abuse may be aided and abetted, that's why there's a distinction?
Well, and because it's a legal drug.
Right.
I mean, you can legally purchase.
Okay, now let's talk about the alcohol. Is that the same analogy for that as well?
Yes, sir, it's illegal purchase, but, you know, we still reserve the right to discipline employees or do what we think is best in certain situations. I mean, we always will reserve that right. If we have someone who comes to work who is totally inebriated or whatever, we have the right to discipline that employee just as we would in any other situation.
Sure, and I understand that part of it. I just, question, I guess, if we're going to have a rehabilitation program, why it wouldn't be for everyone. You're saying it's for one time.
Well, we have had it for 23 years. We've had that program and.
Right. And you're
you know,
saying that this has not been successful?
Well, we have seen some successes in it. The first, say, 20 to 25 were not successful. And when we send these people to rehab, I give them a letter saying, if you're kicked out of the program, if you refuse to go to the program or you refuse any part of treatment, or when you come back to the workplace, if at any time you are positive from that time forward, then you are no longer an employee. And they go into the program with that full knowledge.
Right. And I think if we come from the standpoint of these are all illnesses, I think we would be more compassionate and then, could see it in a broader sense. But I understand your position. And
Yes, sir, and I think that's true, but I think we, as a city, not really into the rehabbing business.
No, I understand
That
that.
should be a research hospital, and if these people continue, then that's probably where they need to go for employment,
I
to become
understand
guinea
that.
pigs of such.
Oh, okay, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions?
I have one question. I meant to ask this and forgot it last week. If the person goes through the drug rehabilitation and comes back and then fails a drug test again, are they just terminated, or is there criminal charges brought against them?
No, sir, we don't do criminal charges, we just go ahead and terminate them.
And I have just one question. If this is passed today, when does this go into effect? How
1
much
month.
time do employees have to?
30 days.
30 days?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to approve the policy.
Second the motion.
Motion to approve. I have a second. Any additional discussion? Council, please vote.
And the motion passes 8 in favor, 1 abstaining.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6 is consideration of proposed amendments to the City of Jackson Charter as recommended by the Charter Review Committee. Hopefully, we have Mr. West here, who chaired that committee for almost a year.
Mayor, council.
Council has,
I hope you don't have any questions because it's been 6 or 8 months since I've looked at this, so.
You should have told us that.
I think most of you were on the council when we came before you in February, March, whenever it was. As for the new members, there were originally, I think, 25 or so recommendations from our committee. I think most of those were acted on, and those were fairly simple grammatical, typological type errors that were acted on. The 7 or 8 that are remaining, I believe, are in y'all's packet today. And those are the sticky ones, the ones that we had the most conversation about in our months of meetings, and probably are still the ones that y'all have the most questions about as well. But I'll be glad to try to answer any questions that I can remember from back that time.
Well, I do have a question, but it's an easy one.
Okay.
I know you'll be able to answer this one. It concerns Section 80. That's the last one there.
That's the civil service?
Exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
It's just a statement, it's just a semantics thing that I wanted to get clear in my head. It's saying that you can read through it, but when you get to the part about that members of JEA or Madison County General Hospital will not be considered city or county employees for this purpose. And my question was, JEA, they are not considered city employees, are they? Because they aren't. And I wondered why that was in there.
They are in the charter right now.
They are in the
Yes.
charter.
As far as the charter is concerned, nobody from the hospital or JEA or TVA, any of those listed and several others could not serve on that. And apparently it has been an issue in the past where they did have somebody from one of those organizations serving, and the attorney on the other side challenged their ruling after the fact.
Okay. So they are not city or county employees for this purpose or for any other purpose, correct? Except that we have a board.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
There are some quasi-governmental type agencies like that
Yeah.
there's just some gray area there that we think that this statement helps clear up.
Because I know they're not considered city employees when it comes to that
Correct.
drug-free workplace thing we just voted for. Because
Right,
they already have
right.
that in place for them. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Wes, council?
Mr. Chairman, you're asking this morning for us to consider the proposed considerations to be sent up to Nashville for ratification and then come back to us. Is that
That's right,
correct?
with a two-thirds vote, once it's received back from the General Assembly, once it's approved by them, it has to be ratified by this body.
Okay.
Good question. I'm assuming that our city attorney's going to draft this up.
He will.
In whatever form it
Will.
needs to be to go to them, because this is not how it'll actually be in the,
No, he'll draft it up in proper form to go to the General Assembly for their consideration, both on the Senate, House.
I have a quick question, if I may.
Sure.
And we're saying that the city attorney will put this in a final form. Will we see that final draft, or does it
we will.
just go from here?
Once the final draft, and based upon you all's vote, then you all will receive a copy prior to it being forwarded to local legislative delegation to get into the hopper in Nashville.
But that final version will already be approved?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Move to adopt the amendments.
Second.
Council see any, I don't see any need. I mean, they're pretty much listed here. I didn't know whether the council prefer to take those individually, or if you feel comfortable in taking them all in one vote.
Take them all in one vote.
Move
Okay,
to
you
adopt
got it.
all the
We have
amendments.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
one other question, I guess. I'm assuming our city attorney is okay with this. He's looked at it already and doesn't have a
Yes,
problem?
he served with.
He was right there with
served
us in the
meeting.
room the whole time.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Sammy, very much for your help. Okay, item 7 is consideration of resolution to amend the minutes of July 5th, 2011 City Council meeting. I think we put in 2012, should have put in 2011. Al, does that make sense?
It's just a housekeeping, correct?
Okay, as recommended by the auditors.
So moved.
Approved.
Have a motion, second, discussion. Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Item 8 is consideration of resolution authorizing the mayor to submit annual CAPER 2010, 2011 to Housing and Urban Development.
Move to
Dave, what
adopt the
am-
resolution.
This is that same caper.
Yeah, same caper.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Dave was almost up here, too.
Yeah, Dave,
So he-
make sure I
he
don't
was-
sign something I don't need
He
to
started
sign.
moving that way.
Item 9 has been removed from this month's agenda already. 10 is the board appointments. Recreation Parks Board, a reappointment of Frank Boyd. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion is a second. Second. Discussion, council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Housing Board of Adjustments and Appeals, a reappointment of Leon Cotner.
So moved.
Motion is second.
Second.
Second. Discussion, council, please vote.
The vote is unanimous.
Also, Keep Jackson Beautiful Commission, an appointment of Dave Ralston.
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
second. Discussion, council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
And also the Industrial Development Board, the appointment of Danny Wheeler.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second. Discussion, council, please vote.
The vote is unanimous.
Item 11 is consideration of budget amendments. Val?
This amendment is for a transfer from the general fund into the capital for the groundskeeping department. Funds are being transferred from unanticipated expenses in the amount of $7,000 to cover the purchase of electric service at Shirley Mercer Park and a meter at Centennial Park.
So moved.
Have a motion, a second.
Second.
Second. Discussion, council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 12 is consideration of invoices over $10,000.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Discussion. Council, please vote.
And the vote is unanimous.
There being no further business, meeting is adjourned.